Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Fight Chat Friday from TKD Coach Academy. This week we're going to be looking at some of the key mistakes that colour belts make, especially going into their first international competitions, and how to maybe look at correcting those mistakes, awareness being half the battle. So if that's something that's relevant for you, stay with us for this one.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fight Chat Friday. So this is episode 110, and this one for me is almost like one of the reasons why we started this channel, for me personally anyway. It's like back when I was a colour belt and just got my black belt, looking to make that transition from, we say, like national level competition to make it to the big step. So somebody goes to a World Cup, a European Cup, or an international event, and they see the big picture of what everybody is at the top international black belt level, and they're like, okay, I want to be involved in this. I want a bit of this, and get me some good experience there to get up onto the podium like the guys that I aspire to be like. So this is kind of what we're going to aim with this video, and hopefully give you guys some tips of how to really up your game in terms of sparring to make it as a high level colour belt, and then hopefully transition into black belt at that higher level as well.
Yeah, you definitely see some black belts who look like colour belts, and you see some colour belts that look like black belts. So we want to be the latter. So if we can have our skills as a colour belt so that the black belt looks like the next natural step and that you fit in at that level of sparring, that's ideal. That's where we'd want to be. So let's maybe start with the first principles, and we've just an example that shows some simple things done well and gives us an opportunity to talk about some of the things that often colour belts will need to improve. And we have a match here between Poland in red and Sweden in blue. So
like the first principles, let's go back as simple as we can. This is a game of hit and don't get hit, and I think sometimes colour belts lose that, the whole idea of the points and the clarity of the points to build your scores, where sometimes people go in there and mentality of let's have a fight, let's get in there, throw lots of kicks, lots of punches, with any real with any real structure to it. But you need to be clever, it's a thinking person's game, so you need to be in there, get the clear points on the board, hit and don't get hit. That's the aim of the game, number one.
And we can see some of those basic foundational things being done by Poland in red here, where she hasn't been forced to change from the game plan of front leg, front hand, and creating a little bit of pressure. Some other things that are being done well, and you can see responding to the coach as well, coming back to the centre of the ring. For the most part, from the centre, pushing out, not be really at risk of conceding warnings, so that she's going to keep the value of all of the scores that she gets. Long front leg, keeping your opponent away, and then puts the question to the other person of, okay, can you solve this? If you can solve this, great. Maybe I have to go to another plan or another part of my plan. But if you can't solve this, I'll just take my few points and I'll be happy with that, and I'll win the match. I've hit and not got hit.
Yeah, and I think for colour belts, a lot of time, it's the people who have a little bit of a structure to their game and know what they want to do. It's like, okay, I have a really good front leg psychic, I'm going to use that. Or maybe I'm very good with my hands, I'm going to try use my strategy to get that in play. Whereas some colour belts just go out there almost without a strategy and just throw the kitchen sink and try to use every technique under the sun. So it's people that have a little bit of a structure to their game and have an understanding of their strengths. I think that's a huge advantage for colour belts.
Absolutely. But getting into that kitchen sink again, we get this phenomenon of chasing that comes up so often in colour belt sparring, whether ahead or behind, that the mentality of, I have to go and get that score, whatever it takes. There is no chill, there is no patience, I'm going to go and get it, rather than creating the opportunity and setting up the score. It's I'm going to go and put some pressure on, I'm going to move, I'm going to try and get into that score, and it often puts you in trouble. So we see this match develop. This is Poland versus Ukraine. Poland again in blue in this case, and Ukraine in red. And as the match develops and as the scores get close, we see both girls in turn kind of losing their chill a bit and throwing caution to the wind and chasing their opponent.
Yeah, like chasing is a big factor, because most of the time if you're against somebody who's clever at the maybe like quarterfinal stage on, usually somebody is going to be tuned in, you're going to run into a lot of shots. So you need to be clever at how you do close the distance, and using that front leg here was a better idea from Poland in blue, because they were able to close the distance, where here red, okay, maintaining distance maybe to win the match, but not really closing and giving any threat with that side kick on the attacking front. But then we see Blue here just runs into a side kick as well. So it's just like there's some good points and bad points from both people here. But it's just a little bit of like patience with it, but a little bit of aggression as well at the same time in a patient manner. So you don't want to be like gung-ho and go absolutely crazy, because you're just going to run into shots. It's a big ring, it's a big space, so you need to be patient. But the big factor here for colour belts is you need to close the distance gradually. You can't just run into the open space and not expect to run into a shot. So you need to understand how to squeeze and how to close the distance in a correct manner. And we've covered this in previous topics as well and videos before. But that is a big skill that you need if you want to be able to get to the big scores and close out matches towards the end as well, if you're losing or whatever that may be. So you need to be able to close off the ring, get into closer distance to pressure your opponent to get those scores on the board.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we do see quite a bit with that pressing in is it's almost like there's a switch that goes, I'm going to hands, and it turns off the possibility of going to legs. So regardless of what the opponent does, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to rush, I'm going to go to hands.
There's a good example right on cue, yeah.
Yeah, and then it also works the same in the reverse, where it's like, okay, I'm going to go and kick now. And, you know, when the whole body language changes, and so it's the dropping the hands, covering up against the kick as you try to go to hands, that creates its own problem. When you have the whole thing of leaning back and taking the step in to shorten your stance because you want to kick, that creates its own problem. And both of those get exaggerated when you're chasing, because you're not taking that half second to stop and think and work out the solution to the problem. You're going, I've decided I'm going to punch this person. And often this as well is an overreaction to a coaching cue. So the coach might be telling you, okay, let's say the blitz worked the last time. Okay, so let's set it up and do that again. And then it's just like, go, and we keep throwing it. So it's a good idea to take that moment, find the opportunity, and that will come with a bit of experience as well.
Yeah, we talk about as well, like just in terms of shots, we talk about entry shots, like your first shot into contact. But a lot of people like throw that without the understanding of maybe setting up the distance, of like gradually stepping into the range, stepping out of the range, and try set that up. Whereas some people use their entry shot as just a big open shot. Whereas colour belts need to understand, if they're going to that black belt level, that you need to be able to set up your entry shots a little bit better. Link techniques from your front leg, use your distance to close, use test steps to close the distance on your hands, etc. I think that's a big part of it as well, which kind of links into another point that we have, which is stance. Okay,
so as we go into the stance, it is definitely something that, you know, it turns out it's a very, very popular thing to talk about stance, to talk about footwork. And for colour belts, you can totally understand why, because it controls that distance and it controls the shot selection that's available to you. And so often, colour belts look like they're not making any conscious decisions about what their stance is doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you need to have that position set. Like red here is just kind of almost just walking around and running around the ring. And you see there's like lifts and steps changes and stuff like that. And like at the high level, you're going to get found out here. So you need to have a bit of a structure under your feet. Everything comes from your footwork, really. You know, where you see Blue here, there's a big difference. She understands how to move, how to keep her weight distribution 50-50, how to push, how to pull into contact. And you can see there's a big level difference there for me in terms of the stance and the footwork. And that's a big factor then, which contributes to the result of this match for me. I think that's the big determining factor.
And, you know, it's such an easy thing to say, but you should know what leg you want in front. So I always say to my students, like, you should know what your starting lead leg is, and you will have opportunities in the match. You might have thrown a switch back kick, you might have followed on with a turning kick, and it puts the opposite leg in the front. But you're going to need a strategy to get from there back to your preferred leg in the front as well. Yeah. And all of the leg changing that you'll see from very often from colour belts, which they hope is going to distract, confuse, or give them an advantage over their opponent, actually gets them very confused because their body isn't in the position they expect to be to throw the shots that they need. And so settle down a little bit, figure out what leg you want in the front and what shots you have available from there. And you won't find yourself off balance or in the wrong position when you need the counter shot, or you need to be able to change direction and go and attack.
Yeah, like stepping and walking and running are probably not the best solutions for ITF sparring or any combat for that matter.
Yeah.
You need to have 50-50 so you can balance your weight distribution, use both legs. You can come in to range, you can come out of the range. And then as a result of that, you'll have things like shifting, you'll have sliding and things like that. And bit by bit, gradually closing and expanding the distance. And I think that if you can learn that as a color belt, it will definitely have a big benefit for you pushing into the black belt level.
So let's look at those entry shots that we were talking about and, you know, what you can do to carry yourself into contact. And we had a post there during the week when we were talking about the fact that, you know, while side kick's a hugely popular shot, you don't score your first one all that often. And, you know, we can see here, red is Tajikistan, blue in this case, I think, is Netherlands. And we can see different options on how to close that initial space and get into a scoring position, particularly from Tajikistan here in red.
Yeah, definitely. Not in this particular fight maybe, but over the period of the World Cup color belts, I did notice a lot of people like pushing off their front leg, carry, drop the foot, and then there's a good example, and then step back out of range. You know, you should be using that front leg to build some pressure, squeeze the space to get to the edges, to put some pressure on your opponent, and use that to set up a follow-on entry shots. You know, whereas a lot of time people pick up that front leg, they flick with no real purpose or no real threat, drop the leg and then step back out of range again. You know, that's
what
not
we like to call in the you know, in the club TikTok sparring, and it's nothing to do with the social media app, but it's just I go, you go, I go, you go, and nothing actually happens, but everyone is working. So we want to make sure that when we pick up the leg, it's with an intention. So if it's only to move the other person back to set up your follow-on shot, fine. If it's to take space in the ring, fine. If it's to create a fence between you and your opponent, fine. But you have to have a reason for picking up your leg. If you just kick out into space and put your leg down again, you're just giving your opponent an opportunity to do something more productive. Yeah,
and I think that's for some people, color belts, they see black belts doing a lot of work off the front leg, but they don't understand the reason behind it. And like Master Hutton uses the phrase fit for purpose. The high level black belts always have a purpose to every single thing they do, every step, every feint, every movement. And that's whether setting rhythms, setting traps, setting like almost traps in terms of setting a pattern to break it later on. There's always a reason for the high level black belts to do something. So understanding that as well of your entry shots, it's not just lifting your leg and hoping for the best. You know, you need to set yourself up and set a bit of a structure behind it to put yourself in the correct position to land 2 and 3 shots together after your entry.
Absolutely. So it brings us then through to ringcraft, which, you know, if we describe that as anything, is just being aware of, you know, what is your position in the ring and what does that mean for the shots that are available to you, or how you need to behave in relation to your opponent. Are you where they want you to be, or are you where you want to be or need to be? And it's particularly relevant, I suppose, because we have exits as a major contributor for warnings and losses of scores within ITF sparring. So, you know, being in a particular area of the ring and acting accordingly is really, really important.
Yeah, this is a big thing in modern day ITF sparring because we didn't realize it as much until the scoreboards came in, and how much maybe there's switches in the last maybe 10-20 seconds just on warnings. So you do need to be able to control the space. And what we're looking for here for ringcraft is you not to get pushed to the corners too often and make decision before the last mat. And also what we're looking for then on the flip side is links into the chasing aspect we covered earlier, not running and chasing essentially. What we want to do here is squeeze space gradually, so you have an advantage of your opponent being trapped in positions where they don't have an exit in terms of an exit strategy to get to space, not exiting the ring. So you want to make the person leave the ring, they want to stay in the ring. So the close distance you have of squeezing off that space, more advantage you're going to have as well.
And one of the things that we very, very commonly see from color belts, and we have an example here earlier, is following. So, you know, as the person moves around their ring, we should see here as they pivot, the ring position that's there, that should never occur. So
no, like that red now should be moving into the center for me.
Yes, red should be going towards center, or blue should be moving towards where the referee is to force red to have some tough decisions to make. Where do I go? Do I go right? Do I go left? What do I do? Where instead they're moving almost parallel, and red puts himself back into trouble. And we get the same kind of thing happening here as we get to this side. Okay, red exits, or looks like they've exited, but we've gone into that like parallel to the edges of the ring. And for me, that's a very, very beginner kind of indicator that if we're starting to see spars develop along the edges of the ring, progressing around in a square, that's just okay, you don't know where you are and you don't know what you want to do, because we know from experience looking at the scoreboards, the scores develop when the match has moved to the edge of the ring, where actions are necessitated, because if you're in the middle and you throw an attack, the other person can always move back. They've got loads of room to escape into. Whereas when they have their back foot on the edge of the ring, they can't really move back anymore. So they have to try to counter. They have to try to make a higher risk decision. And that's when the scores come. And if the score doesn't come, it's probably because they exited and there's a warning. So that'll lead to scores over time. So again, just a really colour belt behaviour is not being aware of where you are in the ring, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that for ourselves, myself and Adrian, when we are giving our classes, we work in rings.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that space, you need to, maybe you agree with your partner, okay, we're going to work between this mat, and give yourselves a little bit of a square, just so you have that inner thought process while you spar. Because if you just use every mat available in the hall, you're not going to develop these skills that are necessary. So just to hold yourselves a little bit more accountable as well with your training partners if you don't have the setup of rings in your training space.
So one final thing I think that, always jumps out, and this is true of black belts as well as colour belts, but of course we see less good decision making on behalf of colour belts, is so you found yourself in the tail end of a match and you're in the lead. How do you close out the fight? How do you preserve your cool and make all of the right decisions to make sure that you preserve your lead and carry it through to get a win?
Yeah, like that is very, very important lesson, because we cover this whole thing in episode 108 of how to close out effectively. So if this is something you're lacking with in terms of your skill, definitely check out that episode. But what we're looking for here is you're not leaving it too late, first of all. And then it goes back to two things we spoke about earlier: your ring craft, your distance management, which it ties in with your stance of how you get there, and then not chasing. So like a lot of people, they leave it to maybe like 20 seconds. They're like, oh no, I'm losing. It's too late. Like the rings are too big if you're in the center. If you're against somebody who's clever like this, they're just going to move around and evade for the next 20 seconds. And then we've seen also, like from our last review of the World Cup, sometimes the referees take a long time to give that warning as well while the clock is running. So that's another factor as well. So make sure you don't leave it too late. And on that topic as well, Adrian, we noticed from Instagram polls and our YouTube poll based on last week's video that a lot of people are in favor of the whole idea of stop clock in ITF Sparring. So 94%, a big amount on our YouTube community. And I think it was up in the 84% roughly in the, a bit less, but still a nice percentage of people would like to see the stop-start clock system in place for ITF.
And I think it's really interesting, because I don't think it's that people are so keen to have, more controls to follow, or, more things to think about. It's really just that they can see it as a part of the match that can be gamed. And, there's a push-pull there where coaches and athletes, if they know they can push a little bit or game the system in their favour, naturally that's going to happen. Where if the rules just take away the possibility of that, then it's like, it's okay. And I mean, there was points made around that yes, but you could annoy the referee and then you're going to get the warnings for not obeying. But the whole issue is that
the reality of it,
yeah. But I think for me the issue with that is, yes, that's 100% true and correct. But the issue is that you're putting all of the decision making around who gets an advantage onto the referee in a way. So, very often the more experienced referees will call time the second they see a little bit of someone going for a wander, someone going 3 mats outside the ring when they exit, or not finding their way back quickly to their starting spot. You'll see them actually stopping the clock a bit more, particularly in that last 20 to 30 seconds. But it takes a little bit of composure and confidence as a referee to be able to do that. And maybe automating the process would take it out of take the pressure off the referees, and perhaps just fighters and coaches just wouldn't play with it. The flip side to that is maybe everyone will take nice little breathers knowing that the clock is stopped. It's hard to say for sure. So I think, like always, there's pros and cons to any change to the rules that you might make.
There was good points made as well, especially from umpires that we have, particularly Ray from Norway was one of the people who said the matches will go on forever if you do that all the time. So that's it. There's pros and cons to it. But what I would like to see, I mean, like the responsibilities with the JP and the referee at the minute. So we need to change that rule, I think, and give the IT assistants a little bit of accountability on that front as well. Like, you don't need to be a certain belt or to have a certain qualification to understand that you need to press a button to stop time because it's going too long. There's no real rocket science involved here. So for me, what I would like to see is if the time is going over 5 seconds, the IT assistant is responsible to stop that time. So if it's under 5 seconds, no problem, let the time run. Yeah. But if it goes over 5 seconds, it's automatically stopped until the match resumes with a command of CJAC. And just give a little bit more responsibility to the IT assistant on that front. Because sometimes the center referee has a lot on their mind. They're saying, okay, what was the position that we had? Which fighter was inside? Which was outside? Who am I giving the warning to? Etc. So they have a lot of things thinking about in the moment, in the current time when they need to make that decision. So I think just giving that responsibility to the IT assistant might be something as well if it goes over the 5 second mark.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that kind of covers the common errors or mistakes in performance that we'd see from colour belts. If you have other ideas or things that you think are standard colour belt mistakes that you can improve on, please hit us up in the comments or on any of the social media. And again, if there's any match clips that illustrate any of those things, feel free to share, because again, we're all learning together and we're all trying to improve together, and the more examples that we can have when we're learning, the easier it is to kind of put yourself in that position and really understand what has to be done. So definitely get involved in the comments and share what you have with us.
Yeah, definitely. And if there's anybody who would like us to get stuck into a particular fighter from the World Cup or a particular division or some trend they've seen, let us know and we get stuck into that, because we're excited to delve into the World Cup action in the next few weeks.
Excellent. Well, speaking of the next few weeks, we'll catch everybody next Friday. That's us for today.
I'll see you in the next episode, everybody.
Bye now.